Hey guys, in today's video, I wanted to go over a very effective way to farm specific legendary aspects that you might be looking for. Things that, if you got one more legendary that you need for your build, this is going to be a really good way. Now, there is no direct way of farming legendaries or making them drop. However, using gambling, we can actually very effectively farm specific items and gamble for specific items purely to get the legendary roll that we want. So, for an example, right, I got this helmet that I've been working on. It's a yellow. The only thing that's missing is I need to get a Grasping Whirlwind legendary and imprint that onto this. You might be thinking, okay, well, go farm some legendaries until you get it. But we can speed that up. And the idea is in the Codex of Power, right? Specific things can only drop from specific items. So if I wanted a resource one, for example, I can only get it from rings. As a result, when you go and you gamble, we can actually target specific items that are going to give us that thing. Now, I will explain the theory in just a bit, but I want to just go ahead and give you the information up front. So if you understand the theory or you just don't really care, you just want to know what items to go for, here it is. Here's the graph, okay? If you need an offensive aspect, gamble for one-hand weapons. If you're looking for a defensive aspect, you're going to gamble for pants. If you need a resource item, you have to gamble for rings. It's the only place to get it. If you want utility, you're gambling for boots. And if you want mobility, you're gambling for boots. Again, for some of these, you can get it in other ways. So, like, you can also get mobility from your amulets as well. But if you specifically are trying to target farm a legendary by gambling, this is the one that you want to be rolling for, okay? And again, I'm going to explain the theory in just a bit. I just wanted to give the information up front. Every single legendary aspect in this game has some category to it: defensive, offensive, resource, utility, and mobility, right? However, there's only some item types that can actually get that. So, resource is the best example of this because you can only get a resource legendary on your rings. This means that if you need a very important resource legendary, because again, we can't get all of them through the codex. If I was missing this one, I could just go and do the dungeon. But something like, for example, on a barbarian, Bold Chieftain's Loop, which is a super important resource legendary, I need to get that through rings. So if I want that, what I actually want to be doing is gambling for rings. And we'll talk about gambling a little bit later. I just wanted to explain the theory here first. Next up, let's talk about offensive. The the opposite is also kind of true, where even though you can get offensive from four different pieces, you're actually better off using weapons because the only thing that weapons can roll is an offensive aspect. Rings can also roll offensive, right? But if we want an offensive, we want to be gambling for weapons. The reason why we gamble for one-hand weapons is because they're cheaper than two-hand weapons, and if we're just looking for the roll, it doesn't matter, right? We're not looking for a good two-hander or a good one-hander. We're basically just gambling as cheap as possible to try to find the legendary item that we need. Defensive has a lot, right? And you can get defensive from a lot of different sources. However, pants, and I think also this is the Necromancer Shield. The thing about pants, the only thing that pants can roll is a defensive. Pants cannot roll resource or utility or anything like that. They can only roll defensive. So if you want a defensive aspect, you're going to roll for pants. If we go over to utility, you can see utility can get it from a lot of different sources, helmets, all that stuff. If we're going to roll for utility, I think the best one to go for is going to be for boots, because boots can only roll utility and they can also roll mobility. So the range of what you can get from boots is pretty limited. You don't want to be getting something like a chest armor, which can also roll defensive. You want to keep that very limited. Like, if you're looking for utility, you roll for boots. So me, I'm looking for Grasping Whirlwind, which is a utility aspect. I'm going to be rolling for boots. Same thing with mobility. You can only get mobility from boots and from the amulet, but the amulet can roll like literally, I think, like every legendary aspect in the game. So if you're looking for a mobility aspect, you want to be going for boots. And again, that's why this exists, because this is the most effective way that's going to limit the amount of aspect rolls possible so you can actually get the one that you're looking for. The one other thing I wanted to talk about, I have not seen very many of these. I think this is just like a weapon aspect that can only roll on weapons. So if for whatever reason your build needs this, I guess just gamble for one-hand weapons. There's not much else I can really say about that. So now that we talked about what you actually want to be gambling for, you can find gambling vendors at pretty much every major city, as well as there's a couple others. Like I know that there's one in the backwater. There's a Obol vendor here, right? And you're going to be spending your Obols at the curiosity vendor so that you can gamble for items. Now, I'm pretty sure that every single one of these does have the same exact rarity, but find your lucky charm. Personally, I really like this guy in the desert. I spent a lot of time in Diablo 2 gambling at the desert, so it kind of just fits. Um, and you can also see here that here's all the prices for it. Again, we also like one-handed instead of two-handed because they're just cheaper, so you're able to buy more of them. The one thing that I will say is that some of these you can see are like sacred, and some of these are ancestral. I believe that this changes every single hour, and I'm not sure what that rarity actually means. From my understanding, it just seems like there's a higher chance of getting an ancestral versus a sacred, but if you're just looking for a specific legendary role, that doesn't really matter. Um, and I went to all the different vendors, and they all had the exact same. So, like, if this was ancestral and this was sacred, it would be the same at every single vendor. It just changes at the top of every hour. So, if you also want like if you really want to optimize it, you can try to wait for it to be ancestral. But that's not that. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's probably like a very very marginal upgrade in rarity. So again, let's say I'm here and I want to get my boots, I'm just going to go to this guy. Luckily, it is ancestral right now, but again, I'm looking for grasping whirlwind. It's a utility thing, so I'm going to be gambling for boots. So let's go ahead. We spend all of our guys. We got one legendary, and it's shared misery. Not what we wanted. It is a utility one, which is good, but it's not what we wanted. So all this, we don't really care. Kind of sucks, right? How do you actually get obols? Well, the best thing to do for obols, got to be doing your side events. And I know you guys hate them. I've been skipping them for a lot, and I really regret it now. Don't be skipping your side events, even in those dungeons. You got to do them. If you want to go out of your way specifically, there's a lot of side events in the Helltide. This is where I've been gathering a lot of my obols to gamble. I just go to the Helltide and just run around. I do every single side event and just bam, 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 bam. They're all right there. And on top of that, you're also going to be able to roll for specific items that you want. So I'll go to the Helltide. I'll do all the side events, and then I'll look for chests that have like boots on them, so I get even more gamble potential there, even more rolls to get the boots that I want. Helltide's pretty good because you're getting a 2-in-1. Now there is one other thing we can do. I'm going to show that as well. This is for my PvP enjoyers, guys. We can also gamble with the PvP vendor as well. So if you like doing PvP and you don't mind, risking dying, it's actually a very effective way of your time. It might even be the fastest way to gamble for specific pieces because Helltide's not even always up. This might actually be faster than Helltide. I'm not joking. It is pretty good if you're not dying very often. So we go over here to these two. There's two PvP towns. I believe the vendors are exact same. And if I go to this guy over here, they have, helmet, gloves, chest, boots, and pants. So they don't have everything. That's why the PvP vendor isn't the best always. But if I go, I can just buy some more boots here because again, we want boots, and when we got some movement speed, it's actually a really perfect roll, which is really good. And this is a utility one, not what we wanted. But again, this is something I would also consider if you like doing the PvP vendor is to go here. This is just a really very efficient way. So again, that's the whole idea behind gambling in Diablo 4. It is a very effective way to get a legendary that you need. It's very like in my opinion, it's very hard to get like a perfect item from this. I typically just use gambling to get the legendary pieces that I want. Thanks again for watching, guys. Hopefully this helped and you learned a little bit and you're able to more effectively target specific pieces, get that last legendary that you need, get your build online, start slaying some demons. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.